Welcome to the latest Sooner, Safer, Happier podcast, and I'm delighted to be joined by Andy Sturrock from Atom Bank.
Hello.
Hi, Andy. Good to have you here. So, Andy, could you introduce yourself? Tell us a bit about yourself.
Okay, yeah. So, Andy Sturrock. I'm the CTO at Atom Bank. Actually, my job title is actually Chief Technologist. But think of me as the CTO. It was basically my boss wanted to make the point that he wanted a real technologist to run the technology team, not a kind of politician kind of person. So I'm a geek at heart, is the way I describe it. And actually, I suppose on that note, I would say I began my career when I was about 8. So that was back in the day. I had a Commodore VIC-20. Mighty computer, 3.5K of memory. So that was when you kind of typed in BASIC from magazines and stuff. So carried on doing that, and then we were a Commodore family, so I had a Commodore 128 and a Commodore Amiga. Started writing some C. Then I decided that I'd do my hobby as my degree. So did a computer science degree at Manchester University, and then. I was a software engineer for about 15 years, variety of kind of investment banks and hedge funds. Accidentally turned to the dark side and became a manager. It really wasn't any intention of doing that, but accidentally. I would say the good thing about that was the HR team didn't get to me, and they didn't tell me how to be a manager, so I didn't really know what to do. The only thing I could think of doing was to do the things that annoyed me when I was a developer, and turns out that's a thing now called servant leadership. So I've kind of carried on doing that throughout my career. Investment banks, hedge funds, then worked at BP for Atom, been at Atom now for about 2 and a bit years.
We have a similar background, Andy. Likewise, started my career aged 12. ZX81 and ZX Spectrum.
Oh, ZX81. Yeah, that was the one with the memory pack at the back. If you had to put it in with blue tack. If you touched it, the whole thing would crash completely, right?
Correct, yes. Without the 16K expansion pack, it was 1K of memory, of which about a quarter of that was taken up just by driving the screen. So there was very, very little memory to be able to do anything.
Well, you had to write efficient code in those days, so people could learn a lot from that.
Exactly, super efficient, and not a lot of it. Yeah, and that's so. Thank you for your background. And Atom Bank. So what is Atom Bank?
So we're a neobank, digital bank in the UK. We were actually the first neobank or digital bank to get a banking license back in, I think it was 2016. So we do business loans, residential mortgages, and savings products. We're app only, no branches, not even a web channel actually. So single channel. We have a customer service team you can call if you need to, but the idea is everyone can do everything on the app, and we just aim to make banking better for everyone, because we think banking sucks often, and so we want banking to be much better for everyone, and we think just be really slick, a nice app and self-service in that app is the way that can help making banking better for people. And the more we kind of reduce our own overheads by not having branches, all that kind of stuff, means we can put that back into prices for our customers. So we give good savings rates, good mortgage rates as well. So hopefully win-win for everyone.
So digital only?
Yeah, very much so. So
digital only bank.
Feel the heat sometimes if very much aware that there is no go into a branch option if things go wrong, but fingers crossed, touch wood and all that kind of stuff, things don't go wrong very often, so all good.
And then over your career, since you've been 8 years old, what are your top 3 to 5 learnings in terms of how we do what we do, in terms of ways of working? What are your, if you're somebody listening to this who are on a journey of improving your ways of working, or you have a earlier in your career? What are the learnings that you would want to share with other people?
Yeah, so I suppose I had to kind of think about this quite a lot when I was moving jobs last. So just as I was joining Atom, and you kind of at that point it forces you to think about what's important to you. And it was interesting actually. A lot of the recruiters would seem to be obsessed with which industry I wanted to work in, and I thought I don't really care which industry actually to a large degree. I think almost every industry has got interesting things about it, and almost every industry is going to have boring things about it. But what really mattered to me was the company and how much it wanted to be a modern digital company, and I didn't mind if it wasn't, but I wanted a company that wanted to be like that and really valued technology as part of the company. So I'd say that main lesson learned from that, or for people, is if you're working for a company that really doesn't want to do it, it's going to be very, very hard work. Um, if you want to be that change agent, if you want to be the one to move to those modern ways of working, um, at some point, I think there are companies that I would probably just give up on, actually. And I think at that point, I advise people probably, if you really want to be that change agent, go and work in a company that wants to, be more aligned with your values. And I think I'm very lucky that I found one with Atom. Um, I think, yeah, kind of other things. What was important to me, was being able to do my job in the way that I wanted to do my job. And the really the sort of more broad learning from that is there's a huge amount of research and good practice from IT Revolution and all of that stuff, including your material as well, and it just works, right? So it sounds simple, like just do it, but to some degree, just do it, right? So find a company that will let you do that. And I think I'm very fortunate that Atom, really does let me do that. And being the CTO, there's really no one to kind of tell me that we're not allowed to do that. Whereas I think in particularly bigger companies, there's often layers and layers and layers of management that may not be quite as up for the changes as you are. Now that doesn't mean to say that it's a dead loss in those companies, and there are lots of things that maybe we can get onto about how you convince people that actually making the change is the right thing to do. But yeah, I think being able to make those changes was very important. I think then the final one then is just throughout my career, obsessing about the improvement, obsess about that rather than the execution of the current process, right? I think I've seen too many people in too many companies who are just head down. Look, here's how we do things. We've got to just do it like this. How can we fit perfectly into that process? I've always found that if you can't forget about that, because that's kind of what keeps the company going, right? But be more interested in improving it, right? Question things. How can we do things better? How can we be better next week than we are this week? And if you concentrate on the improvements, then good things will happen, I think. So yeah, probably those three. Sort of on top of that, I think to know you're improving, you need to measure things. And also use a bit of systems thinking. So you could improve locally, but that's not necessarily going to help if you need to think about the whole system. And then the sort of final one, then I'd say just don't stop learning. I think, or individually, important that technology moves really, really fast. But as an organisation as well, I think lots of companies tend to have kind of corporate amnesia. They'll make a change, then they won't stick to it, and they'll kind of seem to go back to the old things, and they kind of forget. Well, we made a change for the reason, right? The reason is those things weren't working. So why are we now going backwards onto those and kind of relearning from first principles all the time? So yeah, I guess that's, I don't know how many that was. 5.
Perfect. That was 5. Yeah, that was perfect. Thank you. So that's interesting because your last one kind of resonates with the first one as well, which is, I'm sure we've all seen organizations have been doing a great job improving how they do what they do, which leads to better outcomes, and then you'll have a change of leadership, and then it's taken 3 years to make significant forward progress, and within the space of 6 months, it kind of goes backwards pretty quickly. Which I think kind of touches on both your first one and your last one, which is the company wanting to be a modern digital company requires evangelism from, in particular, in my experience, from the executive committee.
Agree.
And the CEO, I think, needs to be the chief evangelical officer.
Yeah.
And then your point around don't stop learning and don't stop improving. Interested just to explore that topic a bit more, the kind of the role of senior leaders in this type of change.
Yeah, so I completely agree about the the CEO and the exco. I think I've seen in other organisations that either have worked in or just other organisations that I know about that it's difficult for those senior leaders sometimes to change, right? Because they've got to where they are by doing a certain thing, and that's obviously been successful for them. And it may be, and this is kind of comes into company culture as well, but it may well be that the company culture is not really conducive to people saying I don't know. So certainly I've seen companies like that where you just literally never hear anyone say I don't know, I haven't done that before. And so for them, the senior leaders to make a change, you actually got to be empathetic with them, right? Because that's them being very vulnerable at that point. Now, I think the better leaders will accept their vulnerability and be curious, and I think that's great to say you don't know and that you want to learn. I think that's leading from the front and signaling that continuous learning is a good thing. But I've also seen where the leaders seem to signal that change is for other people, not for them. And then I think that what that really signals is that the company and the company is the people, right? So if the company and the leadership don't actually really want to change, then you won't get any change, and then that's when you really start seeing the kind of cargo cults behaviors come in, where you'll probably be a reorg and happens, but everyone is kind of doing the same thing but with different job titles, and not actually really any transformation, and it'll be the same old stuff but with new names. And that isn't real change, and if you don't really change, you're not going to get any change of outcomes. So I absolutely think it's so important that the leadership signal that they're in on this, and that they have to change just as much as anyone else.
Absolutely, yeah. Role modeling. What's as you said, what's the definition of stupidity?
Yeah.
Doing the same thing and expecting a different outcome.
Yeah.
And I see that quite often as well. That new labels on the same old behavior. It's like we're using different language, but actually, nothing's really changed because the incentives haven't changed, the implicit incentives haven't changed, the culture hasn't changed. How in terms of culture and process, Andy, in your experience, how much of this is about culture and behaviors, and how much of this is about process and tooling?
Well, yeah, it's a good question. I think if you sort of start from the end, right, which is if you want to achieve the outcome of let's say just good flow of work, right, and you are delivering better, value, sooner, safer, happier, right, if you can achieve that outcome, I don't think it really matters that much how you do it, right? There could be all sorts of different ways to do it, but what you should be really interested in is that outcome. Now, saying that, there are, I go back to my point of there's this vast research that you can draw on and I like the way in your book you talk about patterns and anti-patterns, and sometimes the patterns are anti-patterns, or different circumstances, right? That you can apply those, and they're probably more likely to help you than not, and they will help you on that way to achieving that your outcome. So there's always going to be some. I think of lots of things in kind of people, process, and technology, and culture, right? There's always going to be aspects of all of those, but focus on that outcome and work backwards from that. Don't don't do agile, for example. It's about being agile, right? That it's the old thing about it's an adjective, not a noun. So yeah, there's clearly all those aspects, but remember what the goal is, the outcome we're trying to achieve. Don't do it for its own sake.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Every company is perfectly optimized for the results it's getting.
Yes.
If you're happy with the results you're getting, don't change. If you're not, as you said, be clear on what the outcomes are you're going after and then pursue continuous improvement. Yeah, completely agree. Completely agree. And in particular with the particular outcomes of better, value, sooner, safer, happier, quality, value, time to value, safety, and happiness, the design of that is that they're balanced measures. So to this point around behavior and culture and people, the happier one, the one on the right, on the end, happier, that means that you get a feedback loop if it's a case of working people harder rather than fixing the system of work, because you can see the level of engagement so that you do it the right way. As you will have seen, Andy, in the DORA reports, in the State of DevOps reports, organizations that deliver value more quickly but don't do it well, quality goes down and happiness goes down.
Absolutely. And that's the thing I think about the whole DevOps movement, right? There's a if you do this right, you don't have to trade one thing off against another, right? You get to be faster, earlier or sooner on delivery, and you get to do things more safely, and you can have happier people and a better working environment and all of that kind of stuff. And that's why I think, I like the think of it as a whole movement, right? I think too often people, you hear people talking about, oh, we're doing DevOps, and it's like, okay, they're just doing a bit of CI/CD, right? And yes, that's kind of an important building block, right? But it's not the whole thing, right? It's a holistic thing, and if you do all of those things together, you don't have to trade things off.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm going to come back to these. I'm going to come back to your top 5 learnings. And before we come back to them, I'm interested to understand a little bit more about your context, your unique context in Atom Bank. So in terms of the background of Atom Bank, in terms of the size, the age, was it born nimble? Was it born with adaptability? Was there was it like a typical startup where everyone's doing a little bit of everything and it's a bit chaotic at the beginning? Anything you can describe about the kind of the history, even if it's a short history, leading up to this point?
So sort of started in around 2016, I think it was. And at that point, clearly there was 6 people in a room, right? And it really was a startup. Now, I wasn't there, obviously. I think when I joined, just over 2 years ago, about 450, maybe nearly 500 people. So proper bank, and we're just about profitable at that point as well. So despite having because I suppose I come from really big companies, I sort of over-indexed a bit on, I'm going to join a small startup. I mean, we're not a small startup, and actually we're much more moving towards being a grown-up company now. I would say that so I suppose other things about the kind of situation, at least when I joined, really good team in place in the technology team, mainly Atom staff, augmented a bit with some third-party engineers from Poland and some testers from a third party in India. Digital bank, so technology clearly very important and generally valued, but I'd say also there's a bit of frustration and a feeling that technology was holding the company back a little bit as well. Within technology, lots of talk about agile, some good practices, but it seemed like as well someone had skim read a book a little bit and not not really understood it to a very deep level. On the technology front, so all cloud based, so no real legacy. Very very positive place to start from, but definitely room for improvement. And one of the reasons that I was hired, well, the main reason I was hired is because the old CTO was retiring. But one of the reasons that I was hired was that Mark, the CEO, my boss, thought that throughout the lifetime of the bank, our model had been tested and stress tested to all extremes, right? Through lack of capital and being a startup and pandemic and all sorts of things, and the model itself had proven itself, and as I said, we were just about to become profitable just as I joined. But his view was that the one thing that he hadn't been able to crack was to be able to make technology change at the pace that he wanted to, or we as a bank need to make as a digital bank to keep being innovative. I said, we were the first digital only bank, right? So that was very innovative at the time. We want to keep innovating and making things better for our customers. So that was, I think, the sort of the his view, at least when I joined. For my reflection, when I joined, it's a great team. Everyone was frantically busy though, and not really producing much output, and let alone actually achieving many outcomes. So I think that was the situation when I joined.
Okay, so then the challenges looking for a solution, if I've understood correctly, were a desire to deliver value sooner, and the other impediment looking for a solution was we're busy running, but then, as you said, not much output, never mind outcomes. So we're running hard on the treadmill, but we're not seeing that translated into the output and the outcomes.
Exactly that, and that's, as I said, I think that the sort of frustration a little bit from the rest of the bank around, look, we've got all these technology people, and we can see they're really busy, but why haven't we got XYZ new product or whatever it was.
Yeah, interesting. So then, given that was the context, that was a situation, there's a clear why. Sooner, the word I like to use is valuativity,
right,
rather than productivity. The most value in the shortest time, with the least amount of effort, with the fewest amount of stories and story points and velocity and whatever else. I'm not saying slow velocity, but I am saying velocity is not the point. So given that's the problem looking for a solution, first of all, I guess, Andy, what are your thoughts as to the contributing factors for that? What was happening in the system that was leading to that manifestation?
Yeah, so as I said, I often think of things in terms of kind of people, process, technology, and culture, right? So if I kind of go through it in each of those lenses, so people side, as I said, had a great team, but the probably biggest thing on the people side is we were not organised around the work properly. So one of the things that we did was rearrange ourselves around the work in a kind of team topologies style. So again, just back to the point, there's a load of research you can use, and it just helps, right? So don't do it blindly, but take that into account and apply your context. So sort of long-lived multidisciplinary teams aligned around business value streams, and we've got a kind of platform team as well. So that really helped. I can come into a bit more sort of detail about kind of how we were aligned, but that moving to that definitely helped. On the process side, I would say the biggest thing was really that we weren't breaking the work down properly. So I love this thing about agile works for small teams, right? So you need to break the work down to match the way it works best. Don't try and scale agile up to hit a big problem, because it was never designed to do those kind of great big problems. So break the problem down and make it work like that, right? And small teams are always more effective than big teams just in life, right? So that was a big problem. So we had these sort of big long projects that everyone was frustrated that nothing was delivered, and because the value was only ever delivered at the end. So big thing to change there was we added some product managers who would break things down into kind of customer value segments rather than sort of arbitrary technology segments, maybe that it was kind of working how things were working before. Um, on the technology front, as I said, really not too bad actually. Everything was cloud based. Um, no real legacy. Um, Probably the worst thing actually, we'd neglected ourselves a bit. So it kind of cobbler's children syndrome. So a lot of our own tools were out of date. So and we hadn't automated. We'd focused so much on automating things for our customers, but we hadn't automated things for ourselves. So pretty simple thing I did there was create a team called Tech for Tech. So it's our technology for us. So to sort some of our own tools out. And then on culture, it kind of felt like the team had been beaten down a bit, I think, by this kind of not delivering things. But and one of the other problems is that we had way too much whip, effectively, right? I think that the CEO had recognised it, the strategy team had recognised it, and just as I joined, I think they'd moved from something like 50 high priority things to 16 high priority things, where 16 is probably still like 14 too many, right? But it's like way better than 50. So just reducing whip was a massive thing, and just each team now kind of has one or two things that they focus on. We sort of do things in a sort of 3 month, 6 month rest of the year. Kind of we could just call it now, next, later. And so each team kind of has a couple of things to focus on for now, and then we have a sort of roadmap which gets progressively more vague as it goes out into the future, because life is progressively more vague as it goes out into the future. So yeah, those are the sort of main things. Again, lots of BVSSH patterns and team topologies things, and just apply all of the reading and research that's out there. And on that, I always say kind of good news and bad news, really, right? In the sense of the good news is I'm not making this stuff up, right? This is based on lots of research, as well as some of my personal experience, obviously. But for me at least, the bad news is that Mark could replace me as soon as he wants, because as long as he gets another CTO who's read the same books, then he'll get the same outcome. But anyway, he seems to be happy enough so far.
And then I'm thinking of your point around continuous improvement and continuous learning, because so just on what you said there, sure, you can be replaced by someone who's read the same books, but are they continuing to read books and continuing to learn? Like be the best at being better continuously. Yeah. So that's interesting. So in terms of the problem statements, there's how people organize, how the work is organized. So then the socio-technical point, the technology organization, and then there's the behavioral norms. You touched on all of those, and so that sounds like a very common journey in organizations where the people are not aligned to the flow of value, they're not aligned to the customer, typically aligned in role-based silos. It's interesting that you were saying that it sounds like it was a case of eating the elephant rather than elephant carpaccio, rather than the thinnest slice of the elephant.
Yeah.
Along with trying to eat too many elephants at the same time.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, a really good example of that, and this is where the product managers have really made a big difference, actually. So there was this project about mortgage retention. So if you get to the end of the fixed term bit of your mortgage with Atom, then lots of people, they like us, so they want to stay with us. And so we were building that functionality into our app, so people could just do that, very quickly and easily. There'd been a project in place, and it had been going for I don't even know how long, but it was only going to deliver something at the end. And people were getting frustrated with, like, we've been working on this for ages. When are we going to get some value? So we got a really good product manager. Shout out to Laura. She actually used to be a BA in the team, but she'd kind of been thinking about this, and so we put her in this product management role, and she just turned it into customer value increments rather than this great long project that was only going to deliver at the end. So, the easiest way we could test whether customers really did want to stay with Atom was we just sent them an email. We didn't have to build an app feature and all the rest of it. We just sent them an email to say, would you like to retain your mortgage at Atom when your fixed time comes to an end? And we had to actually hire some more contact center people to deal with the response that came back in, but that was fine because we were going to hire some anyway. But that proved that actually there was demand from our customers that they wanted to stay with us. So next thing we did was, okay, well, rather than send them an email, maybe we'll send them a notification in the app to say, would you like to, and then the next thing we did was they could, I think they could browse our products in the app, which ones they were eligible to move on to. So then they could select that, but they still had that then in the background, I think sent an email back to the contact center. But anyway, we built it out by customer increment to the point that now, you can just do the whole thing in the app. And that was a massive thing. Actually, it was that switch from a sort of big long project centric thing with just a delivery at the end to much more kind of digital product development, customer increment way of working. So we've now got several more really excellent product managers who are really great at just thinking of things in terms of customer value and customer increments. And that's made a massive difference, actually.
Amazing. And would you say that has reduced the risk around delivery of value?
Of course, right? Because you deliver something and then you've delivered it, right? And you're not gambling on this like massive whole, I don't know, several million quid's worth or years worth of work, and you can kill things just as easily if you need to without having to worry about all the money you spent and or slightly change direction, whatever it is. And I would say there's this thing of just do the things that you're supposed to do. I'm currently kicking myself because there's a project in another bit of the bank where I was kind of persuaded that doing a longer piece of work and then delivering kind of towards the end, it was going to be more pragmatic and it would be easier and all the rest of it. And it just hasn't been, right? And it's now got to the point again, it was like, oh, for God's sake, we've been working on this for so long. Why haven't we got any value? And I was thinking, I remember the meeting room I was sat in when I was persuaded that would be okay. And I'm just kicking myself. Every time you just don't do the thing that you really know should be done, and there's loads of evidence that it's the right thing to do, it just comes back to bite you. So yeah, self-discipline is a thing.
Yeah. And sometimes being a rebel in the positive sense of the word.
Yeah.
And in terms of this pivot for this example mortgage retention project, in terms of the level of morale and motivation with colleagues, what impact has that had?
Well, it's huge, right? Because from all sorts of ways. So there's neuroscience behind it, right? In the sense of when you finish something, you get this dopamine hit, which dopamine is like one of the most powerful addictive drugs, right? So like why people get addicted to going to the gym or all sorts of different things, right? It would probably be illegal if it wasn't like manufactured with inside. So getting to finish stuff is just motivating in itself, but also then our sort of reputation or standing within the company has just improved hugely as well, and you get into that sort of virtuous circle, right, where the commercial team or ops, whoever else it is, other bits of the bank are much more confident in our ability to deliver at that point, and are therefore much more willing to kind of engage with us, which means it's more likely we'll be able to deliver, and the team are happier, and a happier team is a more productive team, and you just get into this kind of utterly virtuous circle, right? It's great. I think our reputation is really high. We are one of the other things I've done actually is I've banned the term "the business," right? Because I think it doesn't make any sense, right? We're a digital bank. There is no Atom without the technology team, so we're just as much part of the business as the commercial team or the ops team or whoever else. And I think that even that little thing has kind of helped, right? Where we are a technology company, and in fact, I think almost every tech company in the world really needs to be a technology company, right? I just can't think of a company that really will thrive these days without thinking of itself as a technology company. So, yeah, I think now we are just as much part of the business and part of the bank rather than the kind of they're the team that are holding us back. I think we're now absolutely seen as the team that are driving us forward.
Yeah, there's I completely agree on that. The if you find yourself saying the business, say our business instead. Is something I find myself saying a number of times. Our business, or even the word, as you were doing, even using the word we
Yeah,
rather than they.
no, absolutely.
Yeah.
So I refer, it'll be the bank or Atom or whatever, or if it's another team in the
Mm.
bank, I just call them by the name of the team, right? It's the commercial team or the finance team or the ops team or whatever. It's not the business.
Yeah, and importantly there as well, I think in line with your move to multidisciplinary teams, aligned to the customer, aligned to customer value, what works, the success pattern there that works really well is when you ask somebody where they work in an organization, they give you the answer they give you is the value stream answer. So I work in mortgages, not the role silo answer. So not I work in engineering or I work in QA or I work in product or pricing, but actually I work in mortgages or
Yeah.
insurance or savings.
No,
Yeah,
exactly. And I
that's
actually tried that in a tech town hall. It's probably about 6 months ago now. Actually, I just said, right, come out of the blue, right, type into the chat which team do you work in, and I was massively pleased. Actually, I would say probably 75% plus of the team, put savings, mortgages, business lending, and we have another team,
that's
enterprise.
great.
So I was really pleased with that. And actually, just on that point about multidisciplinary teams, the other thing, again, sort of really big learning is they need to be properly multidisciplinary, not just multidisciplinary within technology. Right, so the product managers are part of the commercial, bit of the bank. They're not part of technology. And then, within those value stream aligned delivery teams, we'll have people from ops, whatever it is, right? So effectively, the whole bank is moving towards a value stream aligned organization with proper multidisciplinary teams, not just multidisciplinary within the organization. The bigger team, technology ops, whatever.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think that first one, that multidisciplinary within technology, I think that's kind of the noughties. That's like 2000 era. Yeah, and this
Yeah,
definitely is the new normal now for organizations breaking out of the 2000s, uh, where it's organizational adaptability, organizational continuous improvement.
yeah. I mean, multidisciplinary within technology is a good first step, but don't finish there, right?
Don't stop
I mean,
there. Yeah,
I've even
yeah.
had a HR team in one company talk about a multidisciplinary team, and what they meant was, there was a HR business partner person and someone from talent and someone from rewards and whatever, right? But it was multidisciplinary within HR. So yeah, again, good first step, but that's not the end.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So I just want to come back now to your top five learnings, Andy. I'm just going to pick on a couple of them just to dig a bit deeper. So the fourth one that you measured the fourth one that you articulated, you mentioned, was about measurement and a data feedback loop and not doing local optimizations. Can you just tell me a bit more about that topic around measurement and data feedback loops and how it has been in your context and what you've done about it?
Yeah, so and I suppose it relates to the don't unlearn things as well, right? So when I joined, and as I said, I had these kind of observations and the changes I thought we needed to make. So I presented that to my peers on the executive committee and to the board, and said, right, here's the changes I want to make. And inevitably, there was a question about how do we know they're going to work? And I said, well, because there are these industry standard measures called these DORA measures, and I had to explain, it's not Dora the Explorer, right? It's what they actually work.
Mm.
I said, but look, we will be able to see that there is an improvement, right? And it's not just about improving those measures, but if we do improve those measures, we will get better outcomes as a company, right? And I think the really good thing is that obviously they are kind of industry standard, and you can kind of compare yourself to some degree, right, in terms of where you are in elite versus whatever. So we've been really diligent about recording those and other measures on top of it as well, actually. But just being able to show that, look, we are making progress, I think stops people going back to, sort of looking backwards almost with rose tinted spectacles, because you can show that, look, our cycle time is just so much less than it was, right? And oh, do you remember we used to do these projects that wouldn't deliver anything for a year, right? Well, now look, we 26 days, I think, is one of our most recent cycle times. So, and then also not just using those as kind of external showing how great we are, but also using the same measures to drive improvements internally as well, right? So we could see, we measure dev start to production and dev complete to production, right? And lead time versus cycle time, and I can never remember which round they are. But anyway, but it showed that we spent often longer getting dev complete to production than it did for us to write the code in the first place, right? And that's madness. So, and there's pretty simple ways around that, right? It is just, CI/CD pipelines and automation and all of that kind of stuff. So, just using those metrics actually was quite insightful for us internally within technology to be able to show some of the areas that we needed to focus on. So, certainly those metrics, you can show they're useful externally to kind of show the effect that you're having. Use the same metrics to drive your own improvements, and then I think the systems thinking bit, it is very easy to end up in a local optimization. So, I've had some we do lots and lots of feedback surveys in the team, and some of the team have come back with, we used to be sort of more busy, right? And there are times now, sometimes in our value stream aligned delivery teams where, I don't know, maybe like the front end engineers, the app engineers, they're kind of like, well, we don't really have anything to do this sprint. God, that's really bad, isn't it? And in particular, if you go back to when I said, look, there was a thing about we weren't delivering, then everyone felt they had to be busy, right? Because if you're busy, you're doing something. But now it's like, okay, well, great, go and do some training or something, right? Or do some refactoring. It doesn't really matter if that individual is not busy, because we're not optimizing for people being busy. What we're optimizing for is the flow of work through the whole system. But that took a really big mindset shift for people. They were just really worried if they were not busy all the time. But empirically, everyone was busy, but we weren't achieving any outcomes. But now we're achieving lots of outcomes, and sometimes people are not busy, but that's okay. There's always things that people can find to keep themselves amused, or an easy week, because there'll be other weeks when you are going to be busy.
Exactly. Like, jump in, solve some impediments, alleviate some issues, jump in and help other people with their role, with their job roles. So don't just be a front end engineer, but jump in where the bottleneck is and help alleviate it. That's a really powerful point you just made there about people not feeling that they need to be busy. It seems like a relatively small thing of like, we've got front end engineers who've got nothing to do this sprint. That's okay. Innovate, speak to the customer, continuously improve. That seems like a small thing, but that's one of those black swan moments. That's like a disproportionately impactful when you get to that culture and mindset point.
Yeah,
I think that's a really important point.
and you know, obviously a load of the stuff goes back to the goal by Eli Goldratt, and it's this thing about cost accounting. I think it's called, right, about you're trying to
Yeah.
get machines to be busy all the time, but it just doesn't work. Right? So think of it as that
No,
end-to-end process. What are you optimizing for? And to me, it's all about that just flow of work through
exactly.
the system.
Exactly. Otherwise, like a physical manufacturing floor, you end up with overproduction in one of the machines, which just stacks up behind the other
Yeah.
value centers in the organization. Um, great. So thank you for doing a double click on that one. Um, so Andy, maybe could you just give a very short recap? Could you just say again your top five? Just a quick repeat to remind us of what your top five learnings are.
So um, you're going to have. It sounds obvious. You're going to have an easier time if you're trying to make a change, if the company really believes in it. If the company doesn't really believe in it, I think you need to question whether actually it's worth your time, right? And not everyone has the luxury of finding another job, but you need to just think about that and I think reflect. There is a huge amount of research, good practice, all the IT revolution stuff. It really works. Don't just apply it blindly. It isn't the goal in itself, but it will help you make those changes. Third one, I think, was be obsessive about the improvement, not just executing the current thing. The improvement is where again, it sounds obvious. The improvement is where you're going to make your improvements. Right? Things don't get better unless you focus on getting better. So focus on getting better, not just executing the existing bit. To help you get better, to help you know you're getting better, you need to measure things. You need feedback to make sure that feedback loops to make sure that you are actually going in the same direction. So you can pivot if you need to, and use systems thinking to make sure that it's getting better at the system level, not just at the local optimization level. And then the final one would be never stop learning. So don't stop learning as an individual. This week I've just been playing around with AI and Google Gemini and stuff, and I feel loads more confident talking to the board now about a subject which is clearly very, very important, right? So don't stop learning as an individual, but also don't stop learning as a company, right? Make a change, measure it if it's going to work, pivot or persevere. Don't just randomly go back and learn things again. It's such a waste of time and effort. So just keep learning.
Thank you. And what are some of the benefits? What's the headline benefits that you've seen at Atom Bank?
So, like, this is going to sound like I'm really sucky, right, up to you, but I would say we are delivering better value, sooner, safer, happier, right? And actually, we've kind of used some of those as objectives, like internally within the technology team. We have OKRs actually now at a company level, and we kind of drill them down into the all parts of the bank. But as a sort of objective about us being a better technology organization, and therefore because the bank is effectively a technology company, we've made a load of those changes, as I say, just based on all the good research that's out there, and we are, objectively with data, we are delivering better value, sooner, safer, happier.
That's amazing. What a great note to end on. Andy, thank you very much. I wish you and the extended team, you don't need good luck. It's not good luck. But enjoy the journey around continuously improving, continuously learning. And Andy, thank you very much for sharing your learning for the benefit of other people's learning.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, Andy.